Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. We've made it through the week. We are here on today's Friday AlphaNooner. Excited to be joined again today by Noah Hamman, back in the mix. Definitely America decked out, back from your trip to visit some family. Seem to be very happy to be back in the U.S.
Ready to be back.
Yeah, right, nice.
Except it's freezing out here and snowing, apparently.
Yes, randomly we had a bout of snow, which is a surprise. We've had, I think, just in terms of the news cycle, in terms of the investing cycle, in terms of the weather cycle, I think we had high of 60 on Monday, snow and rain today. It's constantly moving and changing. But thanks for joining. Really appreciate if you were out there.
I'm out there.
You're out there too. You can give a like. You can subscribe. You can share with your friends. You're welcome to do that. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, throw them in the chat. We take them on every platform except for Instagram. I see Steve in here.
Sorry, Grammars.
Sorry, Grammars. That's fine. What are you going to do? You can technically put a comment in and I might see it, but.
What about Threads? Do you take comments from Threads? Or what's there's a new one. Yeah, Blue Sky.
No. None of them, but we should look at streaming too. I know. You can stream it to Truth Social. You can hit everything. You can hit both ends of the spectrum. You can have a streaming service.
They
whatever.
could. They might.
You got to
I don't
reach
know.
the people where they are, I guess.
I'd go Rumble, right? We probably could turn it on Rumble.
Yeah.
But
TikTok. TikTok is kind of a younger audience. So I
do they do streaming like that?
I think they do lives, yeah.
Oh, all right.
So we could do that eventually. Who knows? But yeah.
Would you do it on your TikTok account or?
We technically have a official company account name reserved.
Do you have one though?
I did have one. I've recently deleted it.
Was this when you were in college or what?
It was around when I was in college.
Oh.
Believe it or not.
That was like a few years ago, right?
Well, I think it was.
No, that you were in college.
Yeah, there you go. Wish. Yeah, no. Not true. But yeah, no, I think it was a different app and then changed over. Anyhow, a lot of.
Why'd you delete TikTok? You fell to the peer pressure of hashtag delete TikTok?
I did not. I think it's too. There is some good stuff in there, and I think that you get kind of not breadcrumbed it, but I think you can find every like 10 videos you'll find a great one, but then it's just you're wasting time on it.
It is the reason I only like X, because all the other social platforms, and maybe I'm just an idiot, I don't know how to do it, but I get fed so much other stuff that I really just don't want. And at least with X, you've got the For You, where they're trying to pitch you on stuff, or you have the following. And so if I just stay in that column, I get some quick insight from, accounts I want to follow. And so to do that on Instagram or Facebook, I don't know that you can actually.
Facebook, I don't think you can.
Probably Instagram's the same thing, owned by the same people.
Yeah, I think you can more on Instagram, but I don't know. Who knows? I think it's changing a lot of the platforms recently in terms of where people are actually spending their time. I do think there is a lot on X. People are seemingly returning to X, which is also interesting, a trend.
You think? I thought there's been like
there's been a mix.
Swath of people leaving.
I think there are people who have a new like Blue Sky account or something like that, but I think advertisers have been
coming back. That's true. Good point. So, yeah. So they built they're calling it an NFL portal. I'm not sure that I genuinely understand how it works, but I thought that was interesting.
NFL portal.
Yeah, so you go there. I'm assuming it's in conjunction, partnered with the NFL, and then it's all sorts of NFL content. So it's not one team or one whatever. And I don't even know that you can follow it, which was the weird thing. I'd have to go back and look for that. But they're continuing to build out stuff. I saw actually today or yesterday that the like and reply buttons at the bottom of each post, and I think the engagement numbers or whatever, you can hide all that and then like swipe one direction to like, swipe the other direction to reply. And I thought that was interesting because at least in what I saw, I think was on Elon's post, he said something about how it's a cleaner view, right? So you don't have that sort of line each time. But I also thought, well, why would they do that, right? You almost have to do a little bit, I don't know if it's a little bit more work to engage or respond. But then I thought, what's squeezing more content on your phone screen, probably?
I think that's probably most likely what it is. Because I think even with like sports streaming, not that I'm particularly watching the big game all the time, it seems like I've heard a lot of feedback where there's a lot of stuff happening on the screen at once. So it's, I think the gambling definitely has been a big part of it, but I think like stats and different, people talking and all those different things has been interesting. So.
Yeah. You got a call coming in? You're taking live calls?
Taking a live call.
Oh, they don't know. They don't think your mic is on?
They're saying I have bad audio. See if it sounds better.
Testing.
I think they can hear you,
which is good. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
This is Mackenzie.
Technically, I can do that as a, it does have like the little filters that you can put on there.
Is it any better? Any better?
Let us know. Let us know.
Audio and video just froze for Judy on X.
Are we not moving enough? Is that possibly it? Okay, clear as day. We're getting
Okay,
next things.
perfect.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Do you want to get into? I feel like there are a bunch of different themes.
Go to the next topic.
Sick of it.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. It's been busy. I feel like there's still a lot of unknowns, which is not surprising for people.
Like what? I thought you told me you discovered the meaning of life.
I wish I had that Zen moment. I feel like maybe, psychedelics we do talk about a lot, and maybe who knows. But for the AG side of things, I know that's the big news.
Yes.
I know I understand being very frustrated with losing someone who has been so vocally and consistently pro-cannabis and has made it very clear. So I think anyone who probably comes in after that is probably a hard kind of act to follow. I think it's one of those things where it's hard to tell if she's going to be fully confirmed. I also want to say, wait until it's done. I know it's something
seems far less
complicated.
That's
true.
Complicated is a good word. So I would expect that she gets through, but I guess we'll see. We don't. I'm
not taking it for granted.
In the world, right,
I know.
where
yeah,
it's not happening until it's happened.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Is there anything that you're seeing so far that's sort of like slightly positive, slightly negative? I was trying to look through like what's the good, what's the bad, what's sort of the unknown.
I think in general, it's still all positive for me, right? We've talked about that a lot historically. Are the things that you got into the space or wanted to get into the space, are those things continuing to happen? And historically, it's been easy to say yes, right up until the election. And not the election in terms of Trump winning, but the Florida vote, right? And we knew going into that 60% would be a high threshold, but I really did think it would pass. Again, not based on any inside, information. No one can know unless you've, scoured every voter. So anyone that had an opinion just had an opinion. What?
That's true. I would say even if you did go and you were on the ground, I know John had done some stuff,
and stuff like
not
that,
even just the polling, but like it was popular. It just
Yeah.
You'd have to pull so many millions of people to really have.
So that was a big letdown for me. Yeah. In terms of, is the space, are the people moving in the right direction? And even with being a majority, still, whatever it was, 3 or 4 percentage points away is a little bit frustrating.
Yeah.
But that was probably a big hit in terms of my impression of how things are moving forward. And then don't forget at the same time, you had North and South Dakota saying no thanks to adult use, which again, just as a reminder why certain politicians are the way they are, it's because they're responding to their constituents. And you have a group of people that are like, man, we're good with medical, not good just with random adult use.
I think that's true. I do think coming in, I don't think many people had expectations for the Dakotas to pass something necessarily. I do think that it's not going to be one of those things where all the states come together and say like, it's time all at the same time. I think you'll see like,
we've had other states since we've had the funds say no, or the voters say no. So those didn't bother me as much, but they're data points and they're worth noting. And then obviously, what was it? Nebraska,
Nebraska
forward with medical, right?
Which I think it's
good.
I know it's not everything, but I think it is that good first step. And I do think it is sort of that path towards saying, hey, this is reasonable. This is usable.
Right.
And I don't know how much it comes into play with. I know there's a big focus on combating kind of the opioid crisis that's across the country. I don't know if that helps with that. And people realize, oh, not only is it not a bad thing and it's more neutral, it actually has these positive benefits for,
Yeah, but so for me, Florida is an important state to get adult use in. I don't know now when that changes anytime soon, especially relative to having DeSantis in office and how public he's been against that. Now, to be fair, I think he has himself some wiggle room that he always said he just didn't think it should be a constitutional amendment. A lot of people,
which I agree now,
said. So he's got some wiggle room to, maybe fix that and other things within the state. So we'll see, right? You'll sort of hold out hope, but I don't see anything, progressing there anytime soon. And so as it relates to Trump and, various picks in different positions, I do think it's all cannabis positive. But one, I want to see the people that he's named get confirmed. Two, even the person that they're suggesting as AG, And I've seen comments on both sides where she has apparently made arguments against cannabis legalization or progress. But then others commenting that, she's sort of just doing her job. So I don't know. I don't know that excuse works quite as well for me. Does it for you?
No, I think, well, so to me, I think step one, I'm at the point where definitely I'm thinking about what the options are, but until something is in place, it's hard to really get too wrapped up in it. I think it's hard. I think my thought is around the balance of what's more important. Are these deeply held beliefs on cannabis, or is it sort of she wants to kind of be in line with Trump and, adhere to kind of what he said previously?
Right.
But I'm also wondering, I don't know, I feel like there are so many things that the new administration is really trying to redo and totally kind of rip up from the studs or rip down to the studs, whatever it is, really try to redo stuff that I wonder where cannabis falls in terms of that priority list. I do think if it does get tied more to the opioid element and maybe sort of trafficking drugs into the country, that providing a legal option that works does seem like it would bring it up in terms of priority in some way.
Right.
So I think that positioning is important. I do think it is also good, not everything, but good that a lot of the cannabis companies do seem to be, having done outreach with the Trump side to try to say like, hey, let's get some education going. Let's have that communication.
Right.
I think that builds well, but that isn't everything. We'll have to see. I think it is still.
That is something that I'm very positive on, right? I know Trulieve and Kim Rivers maybe took a little bit of a hit in terms of Florida not getting passed relative to the time and the money that they spent.
Yep.
But I also look at that time and money that she spent and invested into that process as really paying dividends, within this new administration, right? So while she was obviously focused on it for Florida and, their dominant home state, it does seem like the relationships developed, the communication lines opened, will play very well for the new administration coming in. And I think that is thanks to, how aggressive she was about pushing that forward, the money they were willing to invest. So I think that's if we get the movement at a federal level, you still have probably her to thank, even though I know people were frustrated Florida didn't get done.
I think they're frustrated, but what I am happy about, I think, is people are appreciative for her to put skin in the game and really try to move things forward, which is hard.
Well,
I get it.
I saw a lot of post-election dunking on social media on her and the money that was spent, but whatever.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, as you think about it rationally, if you're a long-term investor in the space, it was money well spent. It was relationships well established and really worked out well, given how the election turned out, of which somebody sitting in the show didn't guess the outcome correctly.
I did. I thought it was going to go the other way. I did. You got it right, which is good. But I thought, I don't know. And again, maybe that's living in some way in the DC bubble, because I know DC tends, but again, it's interesting. But yeah, I think that'll also play out well with the chief of staff appointment.
Oh yeah.
Or not appointment. What do you call it, appointment? It is kind of, not really.
But I don't think that one people have to vote on.
No, so that's why I don't think it's an appointment. It's sort of a hiring choice, I guess. I don't know what you call
great. Yeah. It's all good.
So yeah, we'll have to see. But
so I'm still, back to high level optimistic, right? So it's back to sort of head down, and hopefully these companies are working. They should continue. Hopefully they have been, but continue to press like crazy. Where if it's adult use, especially in Florida, make it as easy as possible for people to get the cards that they need.
Yes.
And get that process going, right? It doesn't help you so much with the visitors and things like that. But just continue to market, which I get emails from a lot of these different companies, marketing emails.
Yep.
And I think over the last 6-9 months, they've gotten way more aggressive on their email marketing campaign.
For selling things or for education?
No, for
okay,
selling
just
things.
Okay.
Yeah, promotions going on constantly, which, sometimes promotions can be challenging because that's a lower revenue, right? But you want to get people in. You want to get them to get that card if they need it in that particular state. Obviously get them excited about good products. And I see actually a lot of events at places, Trulieve in particular in Rockville. A lot of events that go on in the store.
I would say, so I know the cannabis industry does have its own unique quirks and kind of elements and ways that it does exist, but having talked yesterday kind of on the restaurant side of things and how things are going there, I think there are a lot of parallels that are just sort of, again, I think it's post-pandemic consequences, but I think obviously people and consumers are strained. So I think those promotions are happening pretty aggressively for whatever types of different things. I think if it's services, if it's the burger you're getting, if it's the gummies you're getting, I think there is a pressure to do that.
Yep.
In the meantime, also, I don't know how things lie with Creative Solutions with hemp potentially as well. I know the new bill seems like they are, it's again, speaking to the whole don't count your eggs till they're hatched. I know it was sort of like, it's not going to happen. Now it's going to totally close entirely. Now it's kind of getting rejected again. So,
and while we don't know what's going to happen there, to me, if you think about it logically, it makes sense that farm bill will get fixed, right? I don't think, sort of practically speaking, anybody wanted sort of psychotropic related things in a hemp farm bill, right? So
the wrong vehicle for it ultimately.
yeah.
Versus,
So, and I'm not saying, good or bad. I'm just saying, I don't think that was their intention. I believe that gets fixed at some point. Now, hopefully, maybe it just gets fixed more broadly at a federal level, right?
Yeah.
But it does, even just looking at what's going on with Green Thumb and Agrify and that play, it does, I think it's awesome, right? All that's going on. But I also then think, what if things change dramatically for hemp? That could make it more challenging. But again, some of it's a bet.
It's buying an option.
Hemp changes, and cannabis doesn't change, that could be challenging. If they're both changing and probably, maybe, if I'm a guessing betting man, merging into whatever, one policy, one law, one rule, whatever, it'll probably all work out great, man. You have a standing, listed entity to take care of the things that you need to get listing quickly. So yeah, I don't know. Lots of changes coming ahead. And I do think it will be, 2 years of some progress. Probably not till January. I don't know that I believe anything's happening in the lame duck session, right? I just don't believe it.
Safe. They're talking about, I know.
Yeah. So I want to see what happens with who gets appointed and how those all go. And then, we're in for a big change come January.
Yeah, the 20th. It's pretty close.
I know.
And I guess the only thing that we do have that is ahead of the inauguration is obviously rescheduling and trying to see what's going on there. I know that has also been a messy process.
Juicy,
I know.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know what'll happen there, but
we'll trying to look up the judge to try to get a little bit more background on him and learn more about him. But kudos to that guy for really taking his role. Not that he
very
wouldn't,
seriously.
but very seriously. I just, my cynical expectation is he sort of rolls in line with what the administrations are doing or the agency is doing. He's clearly not doing that. It's awesome.
I was gonna say, so generally thinking pro. Good.
It's not a good spot to be in, to have a federal judge saying you've got to respond to this lawsuit in a week, which he didn't say what the or else is, but I assume the or else is you just get booted out of these proceedings. And the same with the DEA. I mean, I imagine they're lawyering up themselves right now, not, as in some big defense, but they need to write a very smart response, and having a week to do it. I would imagine people are very worked up, sweating bullets, and people are questioning a lot of things. So who knows? We'll see. I still want to try to get out to that session. We should try to go on December 2nd.
Well, I was going to say, it's also additionally, just from having a very short period to do that, just coming up on Thanksgiving and like that week is kind of a tougher week. So like really trying to be able to get that together in a short time at this time is an extra.
Incredibly difficult, probably incredibly stressful, and it couldn't happen to a bunch of
worse. Oh, there you go. Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, that's, I feel like, good. What's your sense of, because I've been tracking just, how stocks are moving and everything. What's your, because I feel like we had post Florida a little bit of a overswing in terms of, again, it was bad, but an overswing in terms of the reaction from the market. I feel like we've seen bumps and ups and downs. I know with Gates, there was definitely not something terrible, but definitely.
I think I would agree with the whole reaction didn't support the benefit from the news. So I don't know that I ever saw or felt like the cannabis stocks were going up because Florida was looking good, right? So to lose so much from it not looking good,
I think there were bets though on it. I think I'm
not saying it's zero, but when I look at the price action, I look at all the news that came through, of which, from my opinion, most of the positive impact on the cannabis stocks was really coming around all the different things around HHS and that getting moved. And then there's a lot of announcements. There'll be an announcement and then quiet and then announcement and quiet and some progress. And it just took a while. But seemingly, right, end of November of last year, I think things were starting to turn, and we saw that growth from a lot of that activity. I don't know that I could put my finger on, oh, look at this jump from the excitement around Florida. I mean, that's always been coming. I say it's always been coming. It's been coming for a while.
But I still think like up into it, it's like up until a decision when there's a fixed date. I think there is always a little bit of a ramp
anticipation,
up. I think there's
placing bets. But I think that's the interesting thing too, because you could have easily been in a situation where Florida passes and you don't see the same upward spike. And then everyone would be like, well, why are we getting an upward spike? And my response would be, and as it is today, I don't think things change dramatically until you can fix the custody and the uplisting. AgriFi maybe is a great example of that, of something that's easy for people to trade and all on all of the brokerage platforms. Not that I think there's, tons of institutional money in that. But I look at what's going on with that stock, and it does give me hope that when custody and listing comes to these, OTC traded securities in the U.S., it could go well.
That's
we'll
true.
see. I mean, it's easier to push around one stock too than a whole basket. But
that is true. I am also curious though to see if this is something that other companies are looking. I'm sure it's obviously on their radar, but if they kind of pull the trigger on it and say,
I mean, you see a lot of that in the cannabis industry, right? From Kim being, I think, the first one to get the 280E refunds, and then that started spreading around a little bit, to the TSX listing and, arm length relationship to equity and getting that listing. You saw a couple people copy that, and not every company is structured in a way to get that easily done. Obviously, Ben, went down his own path relative to this decision. So I would expect that you'll see a lot of copying in the space, and
which is
honestly,
good.
Wish, for now, and I've been vocal about this, right? Just that it's a little bit of a patchwork in terms of things that's going on, and it might be worth mentioning the boys' lawsuit or
on the 5th,
the Jason Wild lawsuit. That can be interesting, right? And it's interesting to me in terms of if things move slowly with this administration coming into that first, let's call it year. As this suit progresses and they work their way to the Supreme Court, man, that could be interesting or not, right? They may still not get the result they're hoping to get, but there's a lot of things moving forward that's going to put a lot of pressure on change. And I think in that lawsuit, right, they're suing the Department of Justice. So now you have this person coming in, new person that they're suing, who you're maybe believing they might be positive about it. And so that person might raise their hand and say, or have a conversation, right, amongst lawyers and say, hey, stop this. Don't waste your money. We're going to get this done. Give me 6 months and we're there. Now, I don't think they pull back the lawsuit just based on that. But boy, you could see those conversations changing dramatically on the positive side of things, because on the negative side, the answer is or not.
That is negative. I was going to say not on the negative side, but it's
negative is just, those things not progressing.
Which would still be, I think that would be frustrating, especially I think it's the opposite story of what we had seen 4 years ago of things looking very blue and that being a big sign that things were going to change. I don't know. I think there are important ways that it's different, but not having expectation drive, I guess. Ultimately.
It'll be an interesting couple of years. It'll be an interesting couple of years too, because then I think about a world where if you are going to get more sort of a practical view of how to treat cannabis at a federal level, then in my mind, and some have said this, do we actually get to a point, I don't know when, but do we get to a point where in a sense cannabis is treated like, let's call it cigarettes and tobacco. And so now, similar to the hemp drinks, right? Could there be a mechanism to get it at a beer store or liquor store, or maybe even be able to buy it and deliver it online? And then what does the entire cannabis ecosystem look like if you get there? And again, from a risk perspective or not, because you might, guarantees you get there. But man, it just changes the dynamics. And then it also then throws in all these other wild cards, because who else then comes into the space? Are you now competing with these alcohol companies where they may not buy the existing companies? They've got enough money, can hire enough people to get out there and compete. It's going to be an interesting space. Volatility, I don't think, if the one thing will be constant, it'll be that. So I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, interesting. I think definitely on the cannabis side, things moving along. Am curious on also the psychedelic side. I know that's been a big theme. I feel like Elon has been much more kind of on the ketamine and psychedelics side of things more than cannabis recently. I know he obviously had that very famous Joe Rogan interview and has made comments on it, but
Right.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if we see.
I think it's all good there too, right? And the performance you've seen in that fund as of late that I will leave unnamed, I think has been a result
theme.
of that. Yeah, and the theme, those stocks,
Sure.
has been as a result of the RFK appointment or call for the appointment. That's not official yet, right?
Yeah. That's true.
That'll be a good thing, right? But that will still be a tough space, right? Just as a reminder, if you're investing in psychedelic stocks, these are, sort of
Volatile.
biotech that's on steroids. And I think we've been pretty consistent to say that I think it'll move differently than cannabis, right? I think you get some changes in the cannabis space. That's good for all the companies. If you get some changes in the psychedelic space, that's probably good for all the companies as well. But the real winners are going to be the ones who can actually get things approved and passed and through the system.
Yep. And we're starting to see, I think, some results from certain companies if you're following that space. So I think that's important.
But it'll still be star for capital. I would say it's volatile. I guess it doesn't seem to have the same volatility as cannabis stocks, but
It's been volatile.
it's been volatile. Right?
I do wonder with the RFK, not how corruptible he is, but I saw the McDonald's photo and I know everyone's still, I don't know. So I wonder if not corruptible, but swayable.
Well, the funny thing is I think I saw him comment somewhere and something about the oil that McDonald's uses.
Seed oils. Or he wants to make it tallow rather than.
And I guess it used to be. Maybe,
it used to be, yeah.
Right. So that's the impression I get of him. It's not to say McDonald's is bad or that food is bad, even though I did hear him say the other day how poorly he felt like Trump eats.
Oh no!
And
let him live.
I know. He's doing something right. And so it's one of those things where I do feel like he is a bit more practical. He's not against French fries. He's just saying there's probably a better way to prepare them. Yeah. I don't think he's against a hamburger. He's just saying there's a healthier way to make those things. Yeah. And if we can make those choices, we're better off for it.
I think that is an important just perspective.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh, no. Staying healthy. That's diet though, I guess. So technically.
It's filled with chemicals.
Well, aspartame, I think every 6 months there's an article going around about how Diet Coke is but doesn't Trump have?
It's so tasty. Yeah, he loves Diet Coke.
Whatever, that's fine.
It's better with a little vice in it.
But
you know what I mean?
There you go.
Right. A few vices.
Not him.
No, not for him.
No.
I meant for me.
For you.
And I meant during work hours too.
Perfect. Just to be clear. Fair enough. All right. Well, that's good. I think we've also touched on it. It's a bit of a pivot, but as well, speaking of McDonald's and everything like that, and we had the interview yesterday.
I know.
Talking on the restaurant space, I think is important. I do think if you're out there.
I was just watching it because I didn't get a chance to watch it live. And I got right to the portion where you guys were talking about AI in the space. What was said there?
So I think there's a push and pull between what is practically used for AI and what is a real use and application versus what is sort of a flashy AI has all the headlines that, it was mentioned in all the earnings reports a few quarters ago and probably still. But I think ultimately he was saying that it is being very much used, but not in the exciting, flashy ways, but in meaningful ways with back office stuff. It can help streamline a lot of that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's less sort of the front-facing stuff that you'll see it in. You will see it in places I don't know if you've done I think it's Taco Bell drive-through. They'll have an automated person that is an AI that'll do it. It's not perfect yet. I've definitely seen videos online where people are trying to do it and it will not work. It'll in a funny way, and maybe that's part of the marketing. I don't know. But yeah, so it's usable. It's not super overstated, but I think used in different ways than you'd expect. We also talked about the whole what's the battle for labor versus tech in that element, and how does that apply to restaurants? And he was saying it helps ease some of those costs.
I would think so. I do feel like I am seeing more and more of that. The kiosk to order, right? Mm-hmm. So just taking at least those frontline people out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely going to expand over time. And I was just thinking about that in general, right? With AI, and I was doing all the research on NVIDIA, for that stocks, whatever business segment that was abruptly cut.
Technology.
Right. And I was thinking, sometimes I wonder how well I feel like I understand all these things, right? I definitely understand Google or Amazon or even Microsoft being in the AI business,
Of course.
especially relative to how much information and data they have to then aggregate and
Mhm.
do something with. But then I thought, well, one, not everyone's going to want to use somebody else's AI, right? They're
Sure.
going to want their own. And then if you're using your own
It's
AI,
hard
but
to
you're really
do.
using it with your own data set of things, well,
Yep.
then how AI is it? Is it just automation, or can you really get those intelligent components out of it? I don't know that I know the answer to that.
I would imagine that I don't know. I'd imagine companies are not building their own. They probably have like, their data protected and all those different things. But I'm imagining that's pretty expensive to do and all those different things. And I think with AI, it is not something that you have like intelligent AI yet that's passing the Turing test and really can do kind of crazy things. But
Right.
even things with like ChatGPT, it can do some stuff that is really impressive. He was mentioning yesterday that I think there was a new coffee drive-through. I can't remember the name of it. 7 Cups, something like that.
Mhm.
And they are leaning really deeply into kind of the AI experience, and kind of similar to how you used to browse the internet where you needed to, type something in, select your own link, do your own thing, versus something like Instagram where it's serving you up stuff, or TikTok where it's serving you up stuff
Right. Is
without
that
even thinking about it.
AI,
Does that.
or is that some form of, automation, right?
It's not automation because it's taking a data set of like your previous orders, it's
Mhm.
taking like your preferences and all those things. And so that's not fully automation, though, is different. That it is technology. It is not this like end all save all be
Call
all.
it
But
automation, call it quantitative analysis, right? So if it knows I only order these 3 things, it's going to try to find me on social or my email and try to get me those things. Later on, it might learn that I typically only order at night,
But
so it's going to catch me before
exactly.
that. That's just another form of automation.
That's not quite automation though, because automation is sort of taking a task, making a repeatable task in some way, even if it's slightly complex.
Like emailing me stuff that I like based on what you know that I like, right? Once you get past that level of smartness,
Sure.
so then what's the next level of smartness, right? Because to me,
Predicting
the
before.
promise of AI, is it's not even that it has to predict it, but I think it has to get better over time, right? It has to enhance something
Sure.
or improve it. And then I think, well, how, especially maybe taken in the restaurant industry, how we're talking about it.
Sure.
So then how does it enhance it or improve it? Well, one of the things it might learn over time is I don't like cold weather. So if you're going to email me about those burgers that I do enjoy, you probably won't do it on days when it's below 45 degrees because I'm less likely to go get it, right? So you start incorporating more things. So now I need data for my location of weather to come in. Now I kind of know my food preferences. Maybe over time.
I was going to say, I've got the final stage of it, perhaps.
What is it?
What if it's just a subscription service? You subscribe to McDonald's. They say, hey, I know you, and we're going to send you stuff, and we're going to charge you for it when we think you need it. You come home, it's cold, it's been raining at your door. You don't have food. It knows you don't have food somehow.
But that'd be tricky because there's just unless it's in my calendar, it doesn't know if I have plans or not. But same thing.
But it could like track
if you gave it access
your
to
phone.
your calendar.
Yeah. Or it has your location because it has your phone and it understands the weather and it can kind of cross.
So yeah, like how, one, I think if AI is going to prevail in the restaurant industry, my guess is that the third party firm that's building it out for other people. And think about us,
benefits,
like we use the HubSpot system, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to build our own AI system.
That's what I'm saying. No,
we could use tools to help us get better at it. But then even with that, like what data is it getting? If it's just relying on my data, well, I don't have a ton of it. We're a small firm. If I'm Amazon, I got a ton of it. But so I don't know. It's just interesting how those things will evolve over time and what it really can do, right?
I don't know, but I think it is ultimately pushing towards that seamless experience where the kind of divide or like the separation between you and the technology gets smaller and smaller. I think it's the same thing like when you go to a high-end restaurant or a high-end hotel 20 years ago, sometimes they will know things about you coming in
and I'm already talking myself out of the idea that everyone would use the same thing, right? In the example that I used with HubSpot. But if I'm now competing with 100 other firms and they all hire HubSpot,
then what's the difference?
Right. The system is giving them emails, sending it to the right person at the right time, but they're probably sending it on ideas that are very similar to ours sometimes, not always. And so how do you win there if they're all using the same?
I think it's if they're all using it at the same time. Because I think like, for example, Domino's was an earlier adoption to sort of saying like, we're
Right.
providing that. Like, I think there are companies that are able to step out and kind of try something like that first. I'm sure there will become a time where
But
it is
how
more
big
competitive.
then do you need to be to start to build customized solutions?
I think you need to be a big company, but I think
Yeah.
publicly traded, big company. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it'll be prevalent on that space, right? The idea of AI, when I think, and I forgot, when I was looking for the notes for NVIDIA, they were talking about these AI chips, and it was talking about the impact on software as a service, right? Because you're, in a sense, building these computers that say, build me out this website where I can order food and do all this, and it just programs the whole thing for you. You don't even have to hire a coder, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you do for like touch-up things or whatever, and it'll do the design, it'll do the graphics, and it'll reach out into a database and do whatever. Yeah, it's going to disrupt places like that.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense to me. How do I apply it in the restaurant space? It'll be interesting to see how that works out.
It's something that touches every industry. It's just interesting to think of how it could
Right.
in the restaurant side of things.
But robotics in the restaurant space, super interesting.
I still think AI has more than robotics.
Really?
Like the avocado machine. I think that's a cool, fun thing. But I wonder, again, they just recently put it in place. So
I think
we'll have
about
to see.
stuff like just like cleaning and mopping up, right? If I could afford a robot, just as an example, right, that just went into the bathroom every 30 minutes, cleaned it up spotless, how differently do you feel about a place that you would go eat where the bathroom and everything is totally clean versus not so clean, right? Because they can't hire someone, that person called in sick or whatever. And I don't know that that's AI, it's robotics, right? And it's automation in some way. That's going to be a pretty powerful tool.
I'm not sure. I am very interested to see the relationship between like the human element and the tech element going forward, just because like, I think nobody wants a hyper sterile. You go into a restaurant, no one is there. It is just you and robots.
What will be better, real Joe Rogan or AI Joe Rogan? Can AI Joe Rogan out Joe Rogan?
Do you think that they'll put a Tesla robot as a guest on his podcast one of these days?
Sure. Why not?
Crazy. Possibly. Well, anyhow.
I hope they do it like once a year so that then you can assess, how well it does over time.
I saw the Kim Kardashian got one. Apparently.
Well, she's probably just testing it or something. I'm totally
no, I think she's promoting it.
He claimed, and I think he's maybe backing away from this, that it would be affordable when they launched it, right?
30,000,
something like that. I'd heard, right? If that's the price, we're definitely getting one.
There you go. All right, fair enough.
Mm.
It's
going to sub in for me on AlphaNooner Fridays.
Honestly, we could track it, and it's in some of the, whatever. So it does track. Interesting. Seeing a question. How was the sweet green yesterday? Speaking of restaurants, we got sweet green for anyone who didn't know.
I got the miso cod, miso glazed cod. Very good. The service was a bit slow.
I was running to pick it up. Yeah, that's true.
I think you're in the middle of an AlphaNooner or something like that. But I thought it was good. What'd you get?
I think it was good. I did a build your own.
Oh,
build your own. I like that they have pre-done versions, so it's easy to go, but love customizing it.
What did you?
Threw a little chicken in there. Threw a little chickpeas in there. Protein. Nothing crazy.
Skip the salad part.
I did salad and grains. This is not very exciting to everyone, but I think building your own is.
People want to know.
People got to know the order. I'll post it live. But yeah, so that'll be good. But all right, but that was it. Good, I think in general, and a nice healthy option. I think that was nice. I think as well.
Healthy meal. You feel good.
You don't get tired. No. I think, which is the big thing. So
get tired.
I think they're doing well. So who knows? All right, you mentioned NVIDIA. You mentioned you're chatting from before. Any other things on that front that are super pressing?
I don't think so. Cannabis stocks are stressing me out. Ooh. Psychedelic stocks slightly stressing me out. Restaurant stocks depresses me how little people recognize how well they've been doing.
Yeah. I think to give people credit, I think you do see a lot of stories where there are a lot of bankruptcies or things like that. And I think, again, it's separation in terms of.
It's a good point. I was thinking about that the other day, and I was thinking that, what we're seeing happening in these stocks is a bit of good and bad news, right? And I think the bad news component of it is, the pandemic really wiped out your sort of mom and pop, restaurants, right? And it's been difficult for them to come back. And not only has it been difficult for them to come back, they've come back in this period where inflation was going up and then rates were going up, right? And we still keep forgetting, though I keep reminding everyone, we had a few banks that failed, during
Sure.
that time frame, which was kind of crazy.
It's been a busy year.
Yeah. And so my impression, without looking at hard data, is those mom and pop stores, many of them didn't open back up. Many just whatever, because of what they went through in the pandemic. Many of them couldn't open back up because of how difficult it was post-pandemic. And obviously some did, but the winners were probably the bigger places and the bigger chains. And even those, we saw a lot of consolidation in the space because they had their own level of difficulty and challenges.
Sure.
But I think the benefit that have come to these public companies, probably at least in some amount, has come on the backs of independent operators, which I don't love. But nonetheless, as those dynamics change in the world, it's the reason why we're in the investing space, is to try to figure out how you take advantage of those opportunities.
That's true. And things could change. I mean, again, we're only 4 years out from post-pandemic or the pandemic. So, I mean, if the new administration is trying to be more pro small business and things like that, then maybe it does.
Listen, my idea would be, and we can do this tomorrow if you want, I think, if we have time. Well, tomorrow's Saturday, right? But we could probably get it done on Saturday. We IPO a company similar to Berkshire Hathaway, and all we do is just invest in small restaurants across the country.
I thought you were going to say just invest like Berkshire Hathaway, outperform the market.
Well, he's done it in the way that most investors can't, right? By leveraging the crap out of all that excess cash they get out of the insurance company.
Yeah, that's true. Do you have any worries, by the way? I feel like I've seen a ton of articles where they're saying like big investors stockpiling cash and being worried about.
I mean, I'm under the impression if these guys and gals do everything they're talking about doing coming into this administration, it'll be this weird good and bad thing, right? If you, in a sense, fire a third of all government workers,
that's going to be a big change. Yeah, huge.
It's going to be bad. Just in the economy,
Painful,
right? Yeah. And in housing prices and things like that, right? Because people will be selling their houses and moving out of DC or wherever, maybe.
But also moving into DC, because I think there's a big push to push people back into.
That's true.
Specific. So there's a weird balance. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like actually an interesting point. Yeah. I mean, part of my thought would be, to the extent their offices are here, they might be here anyways. So it's just like they actually have to make the commute in, and get off at Metro Center, and that's always pleasant.
In the rain and snow. Oh, you mean just the area? The area is fine. Oh, whatever.
You know me. But anyways, so that seems bad, right? But if there's going to be all this efficiency and all this savings and probably going to bring rates lower, and I would hope that they're going to continue to invest in infrastructure and things like that. They're going to get aggressive on trade so that we have more manufacturing in the U.S. and hopefully more jobs and better paying jobs and all that stuff. It feels like you could see a real sort of growth renaissance. With that being said, we never had to pay the piper on the global pandemic, right? Markets are still floating around all-time highs. We were talking about this yesterday. We actually had our ETF Trust Board meeting, and we're talking about the flows going into those option hedged ETF strategies. And again, while I don't know this for a fact, my impression is they are seeing such significant flows, I think, for this very reason, which is there's this mindset of how long can this continue? I don't want to go to cash and miss out. I don't want to short, right, and miss out. So I'm going to invest in something that's going to maybe cap some of my upside, protect me almost. I don't know that it does perfectly on the downside. And you'll see a lot more money flowing into that because people are sort of buying it as an insurance and still getting some market participation out of it.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think it feels almost like, and again, not exactly, but like being at a party and you're drinking pretty aggressively and you're past a point, but if you keep drinking, you can kind of keep it going. But eventually the hangover, eventually you think you have to.
No, it works. I've been carrying it for a while.
Keeping it going. 30 years strong. No, that's good. All right. Well.
So yeah, I don't know what that means. Well, what's your take? Are you bullish this next 4 years in the stock market? Do we end this upcoming administration higher than where we started?
I don't know, which is not a very exciting answer. I feel like we'll have a much better sense at the end of year one. I think that's really what I'm looking for. I think the range of how the administration is going to approach anything, especially also the economy, like even like the tariff element, I know there's a range in terms of how people are perceiving that, whether it's sort of posturing, if it's just a negotiation tactic, if it's real, what the balance is, and if people are kind of shoring up their own borders and what that means for. So I'm not sure. But it's also been strange because in 2016-ish, it was sort of like, wow, we're constantly hitting. I remember, being in the break room or hearing from the break room, the TV constantly, almost every day being like, new all-time high, new all-time high, new all-time high. And at that time, it was sort of like, well, something's got to change at some point, but it didn't. So
I also think too, just where do people ultimately go? Where do, institutions and in some cases countries ultimately put their money? I don't see anyone, flocking to buy Chinese sovereign bonds or, European EU bonds. Though I think those get more coverage. Thinking about what's going on in Great Britain there. As you know, I was traveling a little bit overseas, and I think it was it a tour guide person, or it might have been, I think it was a tour guide person, and he was talking about this golden passport thing they're doing in that country
for
right?
China, or easy to get a passport, but a lot of
Chinese people, Iranian people, Russian people are throwing money into these countries that offer it to get themselves out of their own country, right? And they have, especially in those countries, have a hard time coming to the U.S., right? In some instances. So where's the opportunity over the next 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 years? It does not appear, at least for those people who could afford to invest in those countries, to be there. We have a great opportunity here, I think, to continue to push and drive and grow. And I think they even use terms like the tariffs, somewhat not incorrectly. And I don't mean media. I mean, actually, the politicians, as they say it, and Trump himself. Like when I heard someone like Howard Lutnick, what is he up for? Commerce Secretary or something like that. But we know from Cantor Fitzgerald, and they're obviously in their industry. We're in their industry. And he was talking about, which is another thing that I observed, right? It's not even always tariffs. It's our inability to fairly compete in some countries overseas, right? So when you look at the cars that are out there, they're suspiciously lacking U.S. cars. Now, certainly in some instances, it's because we're not building it in the size or the shape that they want, but not
the ad campaigns that they want.
Maybe.
Jaguar,
Oh my God, yeah, that's crazy. Oh boy, they're about to get Bud Lighted, aren't they?
But it's also funny. Bud Light just put out a commercial with what's his name? Okay, yeah.
It was funny.
So it's a weird reversal. Things are.
I know, but that's the smart, clever way to do it.
Yeah.
Jaguar, I looked at their Twitter account, and then I was reading all the responses. And man, they were doubling and tripling down on it. I'm like, whoa.
It's true. I will say, though, in the same way that Bud Light could turn it around, it is a way that people have not been talking about Jaguar, I'm guessing, or Jaguar, however you say it, as much as now.
I like your pronunciation.
I had just learned from people in the office that apparently that's not the way you pronounce it. So I don't know.
And it's not the same, there's not the same amount of Jaguar owners as there are Bud Light drinkers. And it's not even the same branding, right? Bud Light is sort of seen as
literally
whatever.
Every man
is, right. But it's weird. And
anyhow, I got you off track, but competing and kind of trying to get a fair shake in terms of what the administration is putting in for tariffs and things.
So I think, it's not always just tariffs. It is just, how we can equally compete in these countries, and we let, them bring their goods and services here. So I'm all for seeing an equal playing field. And so it should be interesting. Yeah.
Either way,
either go really bad or really awesome.
I think there's nuance in there, but yes, that's true. I definitely think, cannabis, volatile, but I also think just in the general market, there's a lot of uncertainty for what happens. So diversification potential.
I think we're probably getting close to the end, and to make sure I ended on somewhat of a higher note. What?
Are you doing Giving Friday?
No.
Okay, we'll do Giving Friday. We'll announce it
because we did. I posted that though, right?
I was going to talk about it again.
We can. Okay. Eddie, right? As frustrated I am with various industries of stocks, right? A little frustrated with cannabis stocks, a little frustrated with psychedelic stocks, the awesome, month or so that those stocks have had. Holy shit. Look at Eddie.
He's moving. People are hearing the story. I saw the
shaking
article, Bacon, on Seeking Alpha.
Yes.
That was a good one. Yep. If anyone hasn't read that, I think he's
about to hit a milestone that I won't describe specifically because you told me not to mention products, which probably means I can't mention that milestone. But I'm happy for the kid. That is awesome.
Yeah, he's doing great.
Yeah, he's doing great.
And I do think, again, coming into not even an uncertain in a negative way, but an uncertain environment, I do think
steady Eddie.
Taking a steady Eddie approach could be interesting. interesting. Who knows? We'll see, but it's good stuff. So shout out to you, Eddie, if you're out there. Thanks for all the good work.
And then you want to talk about Giving Friday? So we did the
Let's-
one. What was that? Yeah, that tells you
The
how much-
Veterans
Oh,
Day.
yeah.
That was last week.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that was good. You did it early because it was on actual Veterans Day.
Oh, so this is
Nice.
a whole new week? That tells you how
So
time's been flying.
This is a whole new week. So I think for this one, kind of speaking to the cannabis theme and kind of trying to support where we can and putting some.
I'm going to have to look it up now as you describe it.
So I think we're looking, I'd seen some Twitter posts going around kind of asking for some support for people who are on the ground and doing the work of telling the cannabis story, doing the education.
How much are we doing?
Getting in front of
500?
That's a lot. That's good. It feels silly to do 420. Why rob anyone of the 80?
Wouldn't that be funny? We should do that.
Okay. Well, anyhow.
I'm doing that now.
Okay. Perfect.
But we'll also do the extra to cover the processing fee.
Oh, look at that. So generous. Okay. Well, that'll be good. I think, again, it's continuing to support, continuing to, really.
Are you ever going to say it? You seemingly are dancing around it. Are you doing that intentionally?
I was going to, we're posting it on X, I'm going to guess, right?
Oh, but why don't you give your live viewers some love so they can get it
true.
before everyone on the internet gets it?
That's fair. All right. Well, so I think for this one, it is the piece that Don had been moving around for the Cannabis Collective.
Actually, do I need to check if I'm allowed to
Do this online?
It is a nonpartisan 5013, so it's just a charitable donation.
It is
So we have weird rules, by the way,
Yeah,
about
that's true.
contributing to politicians under the so-called pay-to-play rules. So this is actually okay.
Okay, good.
But their website says campaign finance laws requires to collect your employment information. I can check that I'm retired or I select my employer.
Perfect.
So
But
that's what makes it weird. Campaign finance laws as a charity. I might be getting in trouble with
Wait,
this.
okay, let's think about that then. Wait. I thought we could because it's not.
It's not a person.
It's not a person.
Not a whatever.
Anyhow, I think that'll be good to continue to support. Again, you probably have seen it if you are following them on Twitter or X, and if you're following Don. But I think that is a good thing to take a look at. American Cannabis Collective, they are constantly on the Hill, constantly giving updates. I saw their last one on the Gates change. And yeah, I think it's important to talk through good times, bad times, updates, what they potentially mean. Again, with understanding that, what they potentially mean is not what they 100% mean until it is shaken out. But yeah, so I think that's what we'll do. We'll post it. I know you want to post proof all the time. I don't think anyone thinks that you're not going to do it, but what?
I don't think it worked.
We'll try again.
Back, therefore, donated users
Persistence. We'll get it going. While you're looking that up, we will also keep the cannabis conversation going next week as well. So if you're tuning in, kind of getting an international bend, we're going to have Margaret Brody back on.
Oh, nice.
Which would be good, talking Rubicon Organics. And then, of course, we'll have Dan on, followed by Todd on Wednesday. So it'll be pretty much cannabis all the time. I think it'll be nice to get a weekend where people can kind of cool off from all the, not cool off, but take some, cool off sounds like people are angry, but, take some time, digest everything that's been going on. I feel like it is one of those things where it's very easy to turn your notifications on and try to get every, opinion or what's changing and didn't go.
No, I was thinking about what you were just saying, right? It's just you get information overload with so much stuff that's going on.
I think it's easy. And I understand that. Yeah. I understand the need to want to be informed and kind of keep a finger on the heartbeat, on the pulse.
Just make up a phrase.
On the pulse. That's what they say, on the pulse, whatever. Heartbeat, it's the same thing. But yeah, I think it'll be good to take a little beat and then head back in next week. So it'll be good. Did you get it going? We'll get it going and we'll get it posted. So don't even sweat it. All right. Weekend plans, real quick. Anything to
I have a kid from
Yeah.
the United States College coming in this weekend for the Thanksgiving week. And I'm doing a lot of catching up from traveling
I
quite a
believe
bit.
that. Okay. That sounds good. Pretty much same here. So nothing
Really?
too crazy.
That's it?
Yeah. Went to New York last weekend, which was exciting, but now
What did you do there?
back home. What did I do? Went for a friend's birthday.
Oh,
So it's good.
nice.
It's good stuff.
It's you and your birthdays.
It is true. But didn't see anything cannabis related. Well, saw some stories still up. I guess that's still also up for debate. We'll talk about that with Todd when he's
It's
on.
still not working.
Okay. We'll get it going. All
Done.
right. We'll get it going.
We'll do it
Stay
later.
tuned. Okay.
Do it later.
We'll do it right
We'll
after.
do it live.
We'll do it post live. All right. That sounds good. Thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a great weekend.
Great
and we
weekend,
will
everybody.
Catch you on Monday. All right. Thanks.
Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses found in the prospectus, available at AdvisorShares.com.